He stared at the phone for a second too long. I watched the change in his face, not obvious, but I knew him well enough to catch it. His jaw tightened just a bit, and his eyes lost that softness they held only a moment ago. I stepped back, slowly letting the fabric in my hands fall onto the bed, trying not to ask too many questions with my eyes. He didn't look at me right away. Just reached over and silenced the buzzing phone, placing it face down without a word. I wanted to pretend it was nothing. That maybe it was just work. Or a reminder. But something about the way he avoided my gaze made my chest feel tight. The silence between us grew loud, like it was trying to say all the things we couldn't. I knew better than to ask right then, but the questions were already crawling through my mind. Who was it? Why did it change his mood so suddenly? And why did it feel like he had been waiting for that message all along? He finally turned to me, offering a half smile, the kind people give when they're trying to pretend nothing happened. "I'll be right back," he said, his voice calm but distant. Then he left the room. No explanation. No kiss on the cheek. Just left. I stood there, staring at the half-folded laundry, the silence wrapping around me like cold water. My hand was still warm from where his fingers had brushed against mine. It felt foolish now, the way I'd let my guard down, how easily I'd slipped back into that old familiar feeling. We had been married for 7 years. Long enough to stop asking where the spark went. We had our routines, our shared jokes, the comfort of knowing someone so well. But also, the ache of being known and still feeling alone. We used to stay up late talking about everything, our dreams, our fears, the kind of future we wanted. Now, we mostly talked about bills, grocery lists, and who forgot to take the trash out. I missed him. Or maybe I missed the version of us we used to be. And now, I wasn't sure if I was imagining things, or if that phone call had opened a door to something I wasn't ready to face. I could still hear the music playing faintly in the background. A soft love song, almost mocking. I picked up his shirt again, holding it close, like maybe the scent of him could give me answers he wasn't ready to share. He stared at the phone for a second too long. I watched the change in his face, not obvious, but I knew him well enough to catch it. His jaw tightened just a bit, and his eyes lost that softness they held only a moment ago. I stepped back, slowly letting the fabric in my hands fall onto the bed, trying not to ask too many questions with my eyes. He didn't look at me right away. Just reached over and silenced the buzzing phone, placing it face down without a word. I wanted to pretend it was nothing. That maybe it was just work. Or a reminder. But something about the way he avoided my gaze made my chest feel tight. The silence between us grew loud, like it was trying to say all the things we couldn't. I knew better than to ask right then, but the questions were already crawling through my mind. Who was it? Why did it change his mood so suddenly? And why did it feel like he had been waiting for that message all along? He finally turned to me, offering a half smile, the kind people give when they're trying to pretend nothing happened. "I'll be right back," he said, his voice calm but distant. Then he left the room. No explanation. No kiss on the cheek. Just left. I stood there, staring at the half-folded laundry, the silence wrapping around me like cold water. My hand was still warm from where his fingers had brushed against mine. It felt foolish now, the way I'd let my guard down, how easily I'd slipped back into that old familiar feeling. We had been married for 7 years. Long enough to stop asking where the spark went. We had our routines, our shared jokes, the comfort of knowing someone so well. But also, the ache of being known and still feeling alone. We used to stay up late talking about everything, our dreams, our fears, the kind of future we wanted. Now, we mostly talked about bills, grocery lists, and who forgot to take the trash out. I missed him. Or maybe I missed the version of us we used to be. And now, I wasn't sure if I was imagining things, or if that phone call had opened a door to something I wasn't ready to face. I could still hear the music playing faintly in the background. A soft love song, almost mocking. I picked up his shirt again, holding it close, like maybe the scent of him could give me answers he wasn't ready to share. I stood there longer than I should have, staring at the spot where he had been just moments ago. It was strange, how quickly the mood had shifted. 1 second, I was melting into his presence, aching for a closeness I hadn't felt in months, and the next, I was alone in that same room, wrapped in questions that refused to stay quiet. I slowly began folding the rest of the clothes, but my hands moved on autopilot. My thoughts were elsewhere, stuck on his expression, on the way he had walked out without really saying anything. There had been distance in his eyes. Not anger, not coldness exactly, just something missing. I heard water running in the bathroom. It gave me time to think, but not in a way that made me feel better. Our relationship hadn't always been this complicated. When we met, we were inseparable, two best friends who happened to fall in love. He used to make me laugh until I couldn't breathe, used to bring home little things just because they reminded him of me. Somewhere along the way, life got louder. His work hours stretched longer. My energy thinned out between home, errands, and everything else. We forgot how to talk. Not the everyday stuff, we still did that, but the deep kind. The kind that holds a marriage together. That night at dinner, the tension hadn't gone away. It just sat between us at the table like a third guest. He was quiet, too quiet. I tried asking about his day. He answered, but in short, polished lines like he didn't want me to hear what was underneath. Then his phone buzzed again. This time, I caught the name flashing on the screen before he turned it over, Maya. My heart paused. Not because I recognized the name, but because I didn't. And yet, it felt familiar. I couldn't explain it, but it was like hearing a word you've dreamed before. Who's Maya? I asked, as gently as I could. He looked up at me, surprised but careful. Just someone from work, he replied too fast. She's part of the new design team. And maybe that was true. Maybe there was nothing more to it. But something about the way he reached for his glass right after told me he was dodging something. Or protecting it. Later that night, when he fell asleep beside me, I laid awake, staring at the ceiling. My mind wandered to the little things, the times he'd stepped away to take calls in another room, the way he had been checking his phone more often, how he'd seemed distracted even when he was right next to me. I wasn't sure if it was real or if I was just afraid of losing something we hadn't even fought for in a while. Somewhere in the middle of that spiral, I remembered a time years ago, before we were married, when he had once told me, no matter what changes, I'll always come home to you. But now, lying next to him in the quiet dark, I wasn't sure if he still meant it. The next morning, I woke up before him. The sun had barely stretched across the sky, casting a dull gray over everything. He was still lying beside me, his breathing soft and steady, like nothing had changed. But everything had. At least for me. My mind wasn't resting, it was racing. I kept seeing that name on his phone. Maya. I wanted to trust him. I really did. But that quiet shift in his behavior, it wasn't my imagination. I'd spent too many years loving this man not to notice when something inside him had drifted somewhere else. He stirred and opened his eyes slowly. Gave me a half smile, the kind that used to warm my whole day. But now, it felt practiced. I didn't mention the phone. Not yet. I didn't want to argue, not before I knew the truth. I got up, made coffee, and went through the motions like any normal morning. But my heart wasn't in any of it. All I could feel was distance. Thick, invisible space between us. Later, while he was in the shower, I walked past the dining table and saw his phone, unlocked, left out. A small part of me screamed not to look. That trust meant giving each other space. But another part, stronger, sharper, needed to know. I picked it up with shaking fingers. I didn't scroll far. Just one message thread near the top. Can't stop thinking about what you said yesterday. You always know what to say to make me smile. They weren't graphic. They weren't even overly romantic. But they weren't the kind of messages you send to a coworker either. Not at that hour. Not with that kind of warmth. My heart dropped to my stomach. I put the phone down quickly, just as I heard the shower shut off. I backed away like I hadn't seen anything. But inside, everything was shifting. When he came into the room, towel around his neck, talking like everything was normal, I couldn't hear a word. My thoughts were too loud. Was this emotional cheating? Or worse? Was I not enough anymore? Or had I been blind to something growing behind the curtain of our routine? I didn't confront him, not yet. I wanted to wait. To ask the right way. To not let anger or heartbreak blur the line between truth and fear. But I knew one thing for sure, something was breaking. And I didn't know if we'd survive it. That whole day, I moved like I was half there. I smiled when I needed to, nodded during conversations, answered phone calls like everything was okay. But inside, I was unraveling. The messages I'd seen haunted me, not because they were overly dramatic, but because they weren't. They were gentle. Intimate in a quiet way. The kind of words people say when they're falling into something they shouldn't. And he hadn't told me about her. Not once. Not even casually. That silence hurt more than any message ever could. By evening, I'd almost talked myself into confronting him. My chest felt too full, my mind spinning with questions I didn't have the courage to ask. But then something unexpected happened, something that flipped everything again. Just as I was about to say something, he handed me an envelope. No words, just a look. A long, unreadable stare like he'd made some decision I didn't know we were close to. My heart nearly stopped. I opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a printed itinerary and a folded note. A weekend trip, just the two of us. Booked, paid, and planned down to every detail. I know things haven't felt right, the note said, written in his messy handwriting, and maybe I haven't said the things I should. But I want us back. I still believe in us. I didn't know what to feel. My breath caught in my throat. This was what I had wanted, wasn't it? Some sign that he still cared. That he still saw me. But why now? After everything? And why plan something so thoughtful without even talking to me first? Was it guilt? Or worse, was it a cover-up? Later that night, when he stepped away to take a call outside, I watched him through the glass door. His voice was low, his back turned. Something about the way he was holding the phone, careful, too careful. And then I saw it. He wasn't talking. He was listening. Quietly. Just nodding. Then, a soft smile. The same kind he used to give me. That was the moment everything in me cracked. It wasn't just the words. It was how much effort he was putting into keeping something separate. Something private. I stood in that hallway, staring at him through the glass, and for the first time, I wondered, what if I wasn't the only one hurting? What if he was, too? But if that were true, why did it feel like he was trying to fix the wrong thing? I didn't go to him. Not yet. I waited until he came back in, calm like nothing happened. I smiled. Played along. But inside, I had already made a decision. That trip? I was going. But not just to save us. I needed to find out the truth, even if it broke everything wide open. The weekend trip felt like a final test neither of us spoke out loud. The car ride was quiet, filled with polite smiles and shared playlists, but not much else. We reached the cabin by late afternoon. It was beautiful, wooden walls, a view of the lake, soft wind brushing the trees. The kind of place meant for healing. Or confession. I wasn't sure which one we needed more. That evening, as we sat on the porch wrapped in blankets, I finally broke the silence. Who is she? My voice didn't shake. I'd rehearsed the question 100 times in my head. He looked at me, startled, and then sighed like he'd known this moment was coming. She's someone I talk to when I feel stuck, he said slowly. Nothing physical. Nothing like that. But yeah, it crossed a line. I know it did. The air shifted. I didn't cry. Not yet. Maybe because I had expected this. Maybe because I knew deep down, he hadn't stopped loving me, he had just gotten lost. And maybe, so had I. You should have told me, I said quietly. I would have rather heard the hard truth than felt it alone. Then came the twist I hadn't seen coming. He leaned forward, took my hand gently. I wasn't talking to her about you, he said. I was talking to her about me. About my father. I blinked. What? Maya is a grief counselor, he said. I didn't want to tell you because I didn't want to drag you into my stuff again. Ever since Dad passed, I've been off. I felt like I was slipping into someone I didn't recognize, and I didn't know how to explain it. I thought I could fix it quietly and come back to you better. I sat there, stunned. His silence hadn't been betrayal, it had been grief. I felt the ache of misunderstanding tighten in my chest. Why didn't you just tell me? I asked. His eyes glistened. Because I didn't want you to see me broken. The truth settled between us like fog lifting. And yet, something still didn't feel complete. As we stood up to go inside, I noticed his phone buzz again. This time, a different name flashed on the screen. Elena. Not Maya. I didn't say a word. He didn't notice I saw the name. Elena. It lingered in my thoughts the rest of the night like an unfinished sentence. But instead of accusing him again, I waited. Not because I was scared, because I needed to understand. The truth about Maya had humbled me. I had jumped to conclusions, fueled by distance and doubt. Maybe Elena was just another piece I didn't fully know yet. Or maybe it was something else. The next morning, I asked him gently, "Can I ask you one more thing without you shutting down on me?" He nodded, slower this time. I told him I saw the name. His expression didn't shift into guilt, it softened. Elena, he said quietly, is my cousin. She helped me find Maya. I didn't want to drag the family into everything, so I kept it quiet. But I swear, that's all it is. This time, I believed him. He handed me his phone, unlocked. "Check if you need to," he said. And I didn't. Because the moment you stop needing proof is the moment you start healing. I looked at him, not as the man who had made me doubt, but as the man who had also been trying in his own messy, quiet way. Relationships aren't made of perfect moments. They're stitched together through mistakes, apologies, and choosing each other again, especially when it's hard. That trip didn't fix everything. But it cracked open the silence between us. We talked. Really talked. About his grief. About my loneliness. About how easy it is to drift apart without even realizing it. And for the first time in a long while, we didn't feel like strangers holding on, we felt like partners figuring it out together. On the drive home, he reached across the console and took my hand. It wasn't grand. It was just real. And sometimes, that's more powerful than any fairy tale ending. If this story touched you in any way, tell us what part stayed with you. Would you want to see what happens after this moment? Let us know in the comments. Your thoughts keep this journey going.